Hello and welcome to EuroPD. We hope those of you who joined us for the pre-conference programme enjoyed the educational courses and the opening plenary. We caught up with Professor Norbert Lamière to talk about the origins of EuroPD, and we spoke to some of the speakers at the conference to talk about improving the outcomes of nephrology patients.
I was involved quite early in EuroPD organization. People have to remember that the first more or less official PD meeting was organized only by industry in Germany. And then some people who were involved in PD, which was not very popular at that time, I must say, thought that a real scientific meeting where basic science and clinical aspects of PD would be discussed out of industry, with industry support, but quite independent. EuroPD had some trouble in establishing itself as a, let's say, scientific meeting because PD was not the most popular way of treating renal replacement therapy needed patients. Hemodialysis was overwhelmingly there, and transplantation. And PD was a little bit considered as a second-class treatment. So around a number of centers in Europe that really were actively involved in the basic science, not only the clinical aspect, but the basic science, and of course Nick Topley's lab was very prominent in that, we decided that we should try to put more science into the meeting. And we were quite successful, I must say. I feel when I oversee the evolution of peritoneal dialysis, it's still considered in many European countries as a treatment that you only offer to your patient when you don't have the chance for expanding your hemodialysis unit or when there is no transplant candidate available. That worries me that PD still will not be equal as renal replacement therapy as the others, although it deserves its place.
Well, the PD Dobbs program, so PDOPS actually stands for the Peritoneal Dialysis Outcomes and Practice Pattern Study. And since 1996, there's been a study that's involved several European countries, Canada, North America, Australia, and Japan, looking at the impact of different practices in hemodialysis on patient outcomes. So very similar to that study, we're very excited to be launching the Peritoneal Dialysis Outcomes and Practice Pattern Study, which will look at some of the differences in the way facilities practice PD and look at the impact of those differences on technique survival on peritoneal dialysis, patient survival, and quality of life. So we're really excited about the study. The first 4 countries to participate in the study will be Canada, the UK, Japan, and the United States. And really we hope to expand the study to many other countries, particularly those in Europe. The theme of the EuroPD meeting is putting the patient in the driver's seat. And I think the first question we have to ask ourselves is, what car would the patient like to drive with that theme? And modality selection really relates to what options patients have for renal replacement therapy. And I think it's really important for us to give patients the knowledge, the education, and the tools to make informed decision making, which I think is really important in terms of putting the patient first. It is so exciting to see so many European countries participate to exchange knowledge, ideas, share experiences, and really enhance the outcomes of patients on peritoneal dialysis within Europe. I think a dream of mine would be to see similar forums take place across the world, particularly in North America. So it's really very exciting to see such a mature and developed program established here in Europe, and I'm quite impressed.
The current status of home hemodialysis is that there is a real resurgence of interest amongst physicians, nurses, and people practicing dialysis. Although it is still localized in centers of excellence which run large programs and have led the way in some cases in the world, there are units which would like to offer this but aren't able to. And in a recent survey that we did through the NDT, we realized there was 50% of the units weren't able to offer a home program, although the physicians and the nurses were very keen to see it grow. The reason why there is the prevalence is still low despite the resurgent interest is because there are a host of other factors that need to come into play for the therapy to be offered to patients, and that involves structural changes, financial models, service delivery, redesigning patient pathways. And for all these to come together, there needs to be real champions in the system to deliver that, and that's happening in the UK, in Europe, many of whom are present in this meeting today and over the next few days. Home hemodialysis is not a therapy that is going to replace PD. On the contrary, it's a therapy that will complement PD. But together, it will increase, I believe, the number of patients who can actually choose to go home on dialysis, whether they are waiting on a transplant list or are not transplantable. So they are a perfect fit with each other, and our program has similarly sized PD and home hemo programs, and the two benefit from each other. The reason why home-based therapies are so important is because if you put patients at the heart of the care, it is important that the patients have the option to choose the location of their care. And a lot of patients would want to have their care based at home. So I think if all the drivers are there, patients will choose to go home because it gives them the independence, the freedom, the flexibility, the quality of life. And more importantly, in the situation of home hemodialysis, it helps them fit dialysis routines flexibly with the rest of their lives.
I spoke at a plenary session about future challenges and opportunities in CKD care, in which I focused mostly on the care of patients with end-stage renal disease. I focused on the personalized treatment, and which I think is the treatment for the future. I think the most important challenges in the management of patients with CKD, and especially with end-stage renal failure for the future, will be the growing number of elderly patients who need a lot of care, but that also in terms of reduction in healthcare budgets. And I think that's a challenge, but also a challenge which might be solved, I think, to focus more on home-based therapies, which also might be very appropriate for elderly patients if we give them enough support. EuroPD has achieved, I think, a lot since its start. It's a platform not only for peritoneal dialysis, which is very important in itself, but now has grown really into a platform for personalized dialysis care, which I think will be the care of the future for the CKD patients with end-stage renal disease. I see EuroPD fit in with the management of patients in the future because of its strong focus on personalized dialysis care and home-based therapies, which I think will really grow in the future. And as I already explained, both because it places the patient actually in the middle of the center of care, also in the driver's seat, as is the topic of the conference. But it can do so at the same time without a real increase in cost per treatment and probably a decrease in cost per treatment. So I think this is a very good balance between what's good for the patients and which is also good for the healthcare budget. And I think EuroPD can play a very important role in promoting self-care of the patients, personalized dialysis care, home-based therapies.
We hope that you all have a very productive day, and we'll update you more on the news of EuroPD tomorrow.